So you're wondering, why did Jews go to Cuba? People always ask me that. Why did they go to Cuba? Well, there's a very good reason. The majority really wanted to come to the United States, but you probably know that there was a very large Jewish migration to the United States at the end of the 19th century. And as you can see in this anti-Semitic cartoon, there was a sense that maybe there were too many of these Jewish immigrants coming to the United States in the late 19th, early 20th century. So what happens? This Immigration Act gets passed in 1924 to limit the immigration of aliens into the United States. And they don't specifically say Jewish people, but they limit the entrance of people from Eastern and Southern Europe. And just to give you an idea, here you can see the quotas. They created a quota system. And by the 50s, they're so prosperous, they're so sure of themselves that they're going to stay in Cuba forever, that they build this major Jewish community center that we know as the Patronato, right? The Casa de la Comunidad Hebrea de Cuba. It's a huge building. Those of you that have been to Cuba will be familiar with it. The front part of it that you're seeing here, after the revolution, with what was left of the Jewish community, they had to give most of it away to the state, and that became the Brecht Theater. But in the 50s, they were looking to stay in Cuba. They had become quite prosperous. They had Jewish schools, they had Jewish theater, restaurants. They were doing extremely well, and they built this big Jewish community center. And the architect is Aquiles Capablanca, who was a major Cuban architect. Now, everything changes, as we know, with the coming of Fidel Castro to power in 1959. And the Jewish community as a whole is very much in favor of the revolution at first. But by 1961, things change for the Jewish community. This is when Fidel Castro declares that the revolution is going to be socialist and properties are nationalized. Most of the Jews were small shop owners, or some of them were large merchants as well. And their properties, their businesses were nationalized between 60 and 61. And that was when the majority chose to leave. They were also very concerned that as a public school system was being created in Cuba, that they would not be able to maintain their Jewish day schools, and as atheism was being enforced on the population, that they would not be able to maintain their traditions. And so those were the reasons that they left. They weren't leaving because of anti-Semitism. They were leaving because of the social and economic changes that were taking place in Cuba. And it's important to know that in the 90s is when the Jewish community begins to revitalize. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, it was only very few elders who had maintained Jewish ritual on the island. Most people were involved in the revolution in various kinds of ways and weren't religiously involved. But after 1991, the Cuban government changed the constitution, and you could be a member of the Communist Party and have a religious affiliation. So many people of all faiths, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Afro-Cuban faiths as well, people started coming back openly to religion. And you can see in this picture by how just a few years ago, there was still a lot of tourism around the Jewish community. And the Jewish community became a community that people wanted to visit and get to know. And I hope that this Jewish presence will continue in Cuba. I just want to show you these children, which gives us hope that there will be a Jewish community to continue on the island in the future. And in the faces of the girls, you can see the diversity of backgrounds and phenotypes, and it's a much more diverse community than it was in the pre-59 period.